Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your...
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talkin Mets It Rob with another Mets hot stove right here on the channel. And I know, a Mets hot stove, not at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, but at 8 p.m. And why do you ask? Was because, of course, the great guys, John and Matt, did a Till Mets Do Us Part podcast, was on a little later. So I didn't want to step on their toes since they do provide great content. So I didn't want to get in their way and, take away people from anybody's stream. So that's why I'm doing an 8 p.m. Mets hot stove. So hopefully everybody's having a good night, and hopefully you guys bring it in the chat as you always do, and make sure to hit on that like button, guys. And if you're a new subscriber of the channel, say what's up in the chat. I will give you a shout out. And if you haven't subbed yet, what are you waiting for? We got a whole off season of Mets moves, and I know at the end of this stream we will talk more about the Mets depth moves. But the depth moves that was just made again, it was Trayce Thompson was signed for a minor league deal with the Mets. Another depth move for the New York Mets. And again, I know this is not exciting. This is not something to get the fan base reignited and fiery and passionate and happy, but depth moves matters. If you notice the constant problems the New York Mets have over the last 5 to 10 years was not having any depth in their organization for any type of situation, even if it's a guy that goes on the IL for 10 to 14 days. You got a guy to step in who is used to being a bench player like Trayce Thompson is, right? It's important to have those type of guys who know their roles, because too many times the Mets fall into the situation where, in this case, a Brett Beatty, in Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos, guys who are used to playing every day. And then when they're up in the big leagues and most of those guys play the same position, well, only one of them can play, and somebody's going to be sitting on the bench. And if they're not used to that role, how can you expect them to be successful, right? Well, in the cases that we're making, what I'm trying to do with Trayce Thompson and all the other depth moves in regards to bullpen arms, in regards to bench players or minor league guys who would step in and be in your AAA system just in case of a 2-week injury, or a guy who might be on paternity leave or just sick for a couple of days. You have somebody to fill in who is used to that role, who has been decent, if not better, good in their role, in their career. That's the type of guys you need. And it's not the end of the world that everybody's like, oh, Trayce Thompson had a terrible year last year. Yeah, absolutely he did. But he knows his role. And you can't keep putting players in situations that they're not comfortable with. And that's been a problem with the Mets for a while. And again, this is not an endorsement for Thompson at all. But the depth moves matters. And if you don't realize that, just go back to 2022 and look how many depth pieces were needed to win 101 games, because that mattered, right? Peterson McGill stepped in when Scherzer was down and DeGrom was down. And if it wasn't for those guys, who knew who the Mets would have been in 2022, right? And just remember how good the bench was for the Mets and guys that stepped in from the minors that came up every now and then throughout that season. It's important. It might not seem like a popular move or popular pieces added to depth, but it matters. And that's the most important thing. And the big reason why the Mets were so terrible was anytime anybody went down, their depth pieces who are not used to being, depth pieces did not step in and do the job. And that's why you can't afford to, I don't care if you have a 24-year-old or a 40-year-old, guys get hurt. We just saw Ronnie Mauricio innocently try to steal a base and fake a steal, and he blew out his knee. Anybody can get hurt at any given time. Is there more risk of an older player? Absolutely. But you always need depth, and it matters. Joe, you know what? Honestly, I feel bad for ourselves. I feel bad for Met fans. Like we're so beaten down that I don't think anybody understands the feeling of a Mets fan. And, the Phillies, who have been, an okay team over the last 8 to 10 years, right? Last couple of seasons, at least you made it to the playoffs and made a run in the playoffs. So you have a little bit to stand on, but you obviously didn't get to your ultimate goal, which is the World Series, which I think every team should have an ultimate goal of winning the World Series every single year, even if you don't make the moves that everybody thinks put you over the top, right? Yankee fans who, were ready to fire Brian Cashman and want Hal Steinbrenner to sell the team had their lowest record in 30 years, and yet they're complaining. So let's get started in what we know about Ronnie Mauricio. We know he has a torn ACL. He's going to be out at least 9 months. That's like the way it's been going about with a lot of ACL injuries in baseball. 9 months seems to be like the key area. 9 months is around September. So I don't, if he does come back and he needs probably about a month of spring training, or at least, baseball, just playing baseball to get back into it, unless the Mets, make the playoffs and they're going to make Ronnie Mauricio a part of it. I don't see him a part of 2024. So where do we turn to? I did a video yesterday about Justin Turner. Justin Turner, to me, makes the most sense, only because I'm not saying Justin Turner has to be the starting third baseman. But what you can do if you do get Justin Turner with his 23 home runs and 96 RBIs is that you can make him your DH. You can give Beatty the third base job. And if Beatty does well, great, you have a third baseman. If Beatty struggles, you can platoon him with Justin Turner and have other options at DH like a Mark Vientos, or if they bring in Hernandez or a JD Martinez or something like that. But Justin Turner makes the most sense. I'm not telling you Justin Turner should play 5 days out of the week, because I don't know if he can hold up at 39 years old with a back injury. I don't know if he can do that. But I do know that Justin Turner can still hit. And if he's playing third base once or twice a week and DH in the rest of the games, I think you could see similar numbers. Now, he did, play in Boston, so those home runs are probably a little bit higher than probably what you would get at Citi Field. But again, Justin Turner isn't a big pole hitter. He's more of a gap-to-gap guy. And again, if you know, right center field in Fenway is humongous. And, I think you can see about 18 to 20 home runs from Justin Turner. And again, it's not the point of the power from Justin Turner. It's the run production, which this team is so lacking when you leave out Lindor and Alonso. After that, there's not a lot of run producers, if any. And that's what we need. That's what people need to focus on. Too many people focus on home runs When, yeah, that is the sexy way of looking at run production. But if there's nobody on base and they're hitting home runs, is it that satisfying? Is it that win-oriented to just look at home runs? Which, by the way, the Mets had a ton of home runs more in 2023 than they did in 2022, but their record was completely different. Is the fact that you need guys who the Mets have a Nimmo, a Jeff McNeil, and if Marte was healthy, are guys who get on base for Lindor and Alonso. And that's important, but after Lindor and Alonso, you have a lot to be desired, left to be desired, and that's the most important thing. You need another run production guy. And David Stearns, if, John brought this up on Till Mets Do Us YouTube channel that he brought up on his stream, was that David Stearns was trying over the last 5 years to get Justin Turner a part of the Brewers. And he always liked Justin Turner. And I think this is the perfect scenario. Again, you don't want this scenario to be the case because of an injury. Now it's mostly a necessity. You have Justin Turner right in front of David Stearns. And again, they're probably really, really focusing in on Yamamoto. And I'm not saying they're not looking to do something else, but I would not be shocked if you hear Justin Turner to the Mets over the coming days, because he's probably that important. And you can talk about the age all you want, but you can't block out the numbers he put up in Boston in 2023. 2020, 38 years old or not, he put up numbers, right? Everybody wants JD Martinez. I think JD Martinez is more of a risk, only because JD Martinez is only a DH. He has no versatility. And you could say, well, we could just use him as a DH. Yes. But the Dodgers had him as a DH because they didn't need him anywhere else on the field because of their sick and crazy lineup. So in this case, Justin Turner provides a little bit of versatility that the Mets might need if Brett Baty struggles out the stretch, in the beginning of the stretch. That's the point. And that's why, and if you haven't learned anything from David Stearns with all these minor moves that he's been making and bench guys, is the fact that he likes guys who are versatile. If you could play third base and second base, great. That helps. If you could play all three outfield positions, great. That helps. If you can DH, but can play third base or first base, perfect. It gives them options. And I think giving Carlos Mendoza options in that scenario, because the worst thing that can happen is, say, the Mets get a Teoscar Hernandez, which I wouldn't be mad about. A competent DH, not a problem. Not a problem. I would take that. I'm not going to go crazy, right? But if they get a Jorge Soler, right, guys that are outfielders, but predominantly you're going to see him as a DH. If Brett Baty is what we've seen from him since he's been up with the Mets in the big leagues, guess what? You have Joey Wendell to turn to. Do you really want to have a case in late April, early May? Brett Baty is struggling, still hovering around the 200 mark, not showing a lot of power, not getting the ball off the ground, not seeing the player, the prospect that we've seen in AAA and in the minor leagues coming up through the system. You want Joey Wendell to play third base every day and no other option? That's a dangerous game to play. I know you have Acuna. I know you have Jet Williams. But that doesn't mean these guys are going to be ready to go, because they might come up and struggle just as badly in the beginning as Brett Baty. And then you're basically in the same position you were to start the season. And I think that's the issue that we're falling into right now. Well, Joe, what big guns though? Because I never believed that Ohtani wanted to come to New York. So if that's a big gun that you're talking about, it's pointless to talk about because Ohtani was never coming to the East Coast. I think he used Toronto and San Francisco to go to the Dodgers. And that's where I think is the case with that. But what other big name did you say we missed out on? Right? What is it? What is it? That's the whole point, right? The fact of the matter is, everybody's talking about, oh, San Francisco is missing out on big time guys. Well, we act like San Francisco was a small market. They never been a small market. The problem is, and you saw the GM of the Giants came out and said it. He thinks they're having a hard time signing free agents because the city of San Francisco is in the dumps. One of the most beautiful cities in this country is San Francisco. It's a beautiful city, but ever since the pandemic and the nonsense of politicians destroying the city, nobody wants to go there. And I understand that, but it comes back to the same situation, I think, with San Francisco, with the Mets, is the fact that more and more players like to feel comfortable. And I think the problem with teams like New York is the fact, just like the Yankees and the Mets, because let's not act like the Yankees have been signing every big name free agent over the last 5 or 6 years, because they haven't, right? Garrett Cole grew up a Yankees fan. That's a different story, right? Carlos Rodon, he really didn't want to come here, but he says, I'll come here if you add a 7th year. The Yankees fell for that nonsense, and he's a Yankee. The fact of the matter is that, and I brought this up in the chat on Tomestua's stream earlier, 99% of the players in baseball, and again, let me just say this, any player that comes from Korea, Japan, wherever, especially specifically the Asian leagues, are not leaving their comfortability of Japan or Korea and come to the States where they know nothing, don't know how they're going to perform, and not take the most money. All right, we have to understand that factor. And in the Ohtani situation, yeah, he had a similar deal for the Giants. But at that point, if they're the same deal and similar, workouts in the deal, then the player has a choice. But I'm telling you right now, if whoever comes in with the highest offer, he's going to. It's just that simple. Yamamoto is not going to take a penny less to go to the Yankees. He's not going to take a penny less to go to the Dodgers. He's not going to take a penny less to go to the Mets or Boston or whoever else is seeing the Giants. He's not. I'm telling you that right now. Right? Look at Jung-Ho Lee. Nobody thought he was going to get $100 million. Some say at the high $90 million. Why did he get over $110 million? $113 million? Why did he go to the Giants? Why did the Giants have to overpay? You know why? Because they were concerned if they had similar offers like other teams, he wouldn't choose the Giants. The fact of the matter is that if Steve Cohen says, we're not going to get outbid for Yamamoto, Yamamoto is going to be a Met. Not because he doesn't want to be a Yankee or the Dodgers he grew up rooting for. That's all nonsense. That's all media clickbait. It's always that way. Because if it was so important to Yamamoto that the Yankees were holding 18, Cashman has the ticket stub of him throwing a no-hitter, and they brought in Matsui and Tanaka. If that was the case, why did he leave that building not signing the contract? Again, today he met with the Dodgers. He was in Dodger Stadium. They had Freeman there. They had Ohtani there. They had Betts there. They had all the videos up of him in Dodger uniforms. If that matters so much, why doesn't he sign on the dotted lines and not leave the room without an offer or without signing the contract? You know why? Because he's going to take the most money. If you don't realize that by now, and listen, if the Mets aren't the highest bidder, Cohen has a lot of explaining to do. because Yamamoto should be a Met because of the money. That's just it. It's just that simple. If you don't believe that, find me a player that's signing this offseason that took less money to go to a new team. Remember, a new team. Don't give me Aaron Nola, who went back to the Phillies, who took less money. Because players like Aaron Judge only go take less money when they head back to the team that they were originally on before becoming a free agent. Everywhere else, every player takes the most money. And it's not even close percentage-wise. Again, you could say whatever you want about prestige franchise, because if that's the case, there would have never been a free agent for the Mets or the Phillies, because the Phillies are right. The Phillies are just as old as the Yankees, and even older than the Yankees and the Dodgers. Why aren't the Phillies considered a historic franchise? Them freaking guys been around since the 1800s. Why aren't they talked about like that? You know why? Because it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It just, yeah, Ken, of course he's going to say that. You know why Rosendahl said that, Chris? You know why he said that? I'll tell you why. Because they have nothing to report every day, right? Andy Martino, who I can't stand, perfectly put out his article today, which said 3 weeks, even a week ago, Martino says that the Mets weren't the favorites. They were underdogs in this, which is silly. He even said that in the article today. But he also said in that article that all of a sudden the Mets have a chance. What have the Mets done since flying to Japan, meeting Yamamoto, going to a restaurant with his family, meeting them? What have they done since? How do they become underdogs and not in the top 5 of signing Yamamoto to now in the top 2 or 3 over a week and a half span when they didn't do nothing different? And nobody met more than Yamamoto more than once. So where is all this coming from? They have nothing to write. Ohtani's over with now, so they can only write about every detail in his contract or about the next big thing, which is Yamamoto. That's what they're doing. And it goes back to the same thing. Again, where was all these great reporters reporting that offer was on the table for Shohei Ohtani from 2 teams? If the Giants came out and says we had a very similar, if not exact offer that the Dodgers offered Ohtani down to the minuscule detail, why didn't these reporters who were supposed to be so great know about this? No matter how quiet an organization is about stuff, your job is to find out that stuff. Have inside information. You always got friends in almost every organization if you're a beat reporter for Major League Baseball or a national reporter. That's the problem. Like, they're not reporting anymore. They're either giving their opinion or they are using any type of topic and making it into a headline article when there's nothing to report. They're not reporting. Andy Martino didn't report nothing. What didn't we know? We always knew before the Dodgers signed Ohtani to this weird contract was that if Ohtani signed with the Dodgers, this was the report, right? Everybody reported this. If the Dodgers signed Ohtani, they're probably out on Yamamoto. But because of the structure of Ohtani's deal with the Dodgers, now the Dodgers are really involved. Because all we heard for 2 weeks was it was against the Mets and the Yankees. Now it's not. Right? The Mets were underdogs. They weren't even in the top 3, according to Andy Martino. Yet, now he says, oh, now they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams as favorites to land Yamamoto. How has it changed when the Mets met with him over a week ago? It makes no sense. It's so stupid. And again, if the Yankees pinstripes mattered and number 18 and the prestige and Tanaka and Matsui, why did he leave the building without signing the contract? Same thing today with the Dodgers. Why did he leave without signing the contract with Betts, Ohtani, and all those guys, and Freeman with them, and seeing Dodger Stadium as beautiful as it is, and seeing his face with the jersey on it and the helmet on it. Guess what? He didn't sign a contract. Why is that? Because here's one thing people don't know, and unless they don't want to figure it out, Yamamoto has to pick a team, and then they work on a contract offer, a contract together. Remember, he is a posted player, a posted free agent that has 45 days to sign. Teams can't offer him contracts. Now, can they give parameters? Yes. It's not a bidding war like it was with Ohtani, who was already in Major League Baseball. Yamamoto has to pick a team, and then they work out a contract. Because that number adds on, what is it, $40-something million for that posted team to Japan? That's the point. So you're not going to hear numbers. You're not going to hear years. Now, are they going to give parameters of like, all right, this is what we're looking at, but this is what we're going to work on once you choose us, right? You have to remember, Yamamoto has to pick a team he wants to go to. Then the team works out a contract. Then the money gets sent to the Japanese team that posted him. So you got to remember, this ain't a typical free agency where there's a bidding war. There is no bidding war with Yamamoto. This is why you're not hearing any years leaking out or numbers salary-wise, because of the fact you can't offer, you can say the parameters, but you can't technically offer him a contract because he hasn't said, I'm signing with you guys. You got to remember that. He can't just go into a bidding war with teams because it doesn't work like that when you're posted from Japan or Korea. It doesn't work like that. They pick their team, and then they work out a contract with that team. And then they give the poster money to the Japanese league for what, I don't know if it's a one-time payment or, over a couple of years. That's what it is. Nobody's talking about that. Why aren't the reporters talking about that? Because all these years and amount of money is speculation. Because nobody's offered a contract to Yamamoto because they can't. They can give parameters. These are the years we're looking at. This is the money range we're looking at. But they can't say, all right, we're going to give you 10 years, $350. They can't do that. They can give you parameters, but they can't offer him a contract until he picks a team. That's what people are not talking about. And we have to remember that while this free agency is going on. So all the lack of information we're hearing in regards to the Mets with Yamamoto is the fact that, of course, we're not going to hear numbers of years or total salary, because there's not going to be, not until he picks a team. That's why when they talk about they're presenting in a meeting, is because they want him to pick a team so they can negotiate a contract. That's why you're not hearing nothing. So all these numbers you're hearing, oh, it's going to be up to $300 million. It's going to be over $250. We don't know. For all we know, he might sign for $250. We don't know. So those numbers that these reporters are putting out there are coming straight out of their ass. 100%. So I just want to check my phone real quick to see if there's anything going on in the world of the Metropolitans. Let's see. All right, let's see what we got. All right. See a hell of a lot of Jet stuff. Hold on. Hold on. All right, hold on. All right, give me a second, guys. Just checking. Okay, I was just want to see if anything went down. Well, Mike, why don't you want Justin Turner? Because, in my opinion, he would be the third best offensive player on this team. He batted 276, hit 23 home runs and 96 RBIs. You know who did better than that? Only Lindor and Alonso. So he would be the third best offensive player on this team. So let's not act like Justin Turner is going to be, the fifth or sixth best offensive player on his team. Well, Mike, I mean, if you're going to say that, you can say that about any player. If Yamamoto comes here, he can be a complete disaster. And then everybody be like, oh, typical Mets. LOL Mets. Right? I mean, why sign anybody if you all think they're just going to fall off the face of the map? Because what's the point then? Then there's no point. If the Mets sign Yamamoto, every Met fan is going to be happy. But I guarantee you, if Yamamoto in the first 4 months of the season is a complete disaster and has a 6 ERA and can't strike out anybody and looks like a shell of himself, you know how many Met fans are going to say, oh, I knew it. I knew. Why did we do this? They were the same fans who wanted to sign Yamamoto. Yeah, but Mike, what 25-year-old? Justin Turner has nothing to do with Yamamoto. And Brett Baty, and again, you want to take your chances with Brett Baty, fine. But if you don't bring in a guy, Mike, how can you say you trust JD Martinez more when he has a traumatic back injury and on top of that, he has no other position? With Turner, you have an option because of Brett Baty, who we're not sure what he is, because if you go into Brett Baty, say if you get JD Martinez, great. Say if JD Martinez has, I'm not going to give a year like the Dodgers last year, but let's say, yeah, but Mike, they're not doing that. Who do you want, Matt Chapman? Who do you want to trade for, Alex Bregman? The Mets aren't doing that. They already told you that. Alex Bregman, who has 1 year left on his contract, Stearns already told you he's not trading for rentals. If you sign Matt Chapman to a 5-year, 6-year deal, well, now you're blocking Mauricio when he comes back, and now you're blocking Baty, and you're getting an older player anyway. So I don't understand what you're talking about. What real third baseman? Yeah, but Vientos doesn't play a position well at all. That's the problem. People don't understand this because people don't care about defense until it hurts you on the field. Until they physically see it with their eyes, they don't care about defense. Because all I heard last year, oh, I don't care about defense as long as he hits. And then Brett Baty's dropping pop-ups. And Nimmo can't catch a pop-up. And then Lindor is making errors early in the year. Alonso's having problems defensively. Cannon can't catch a fly ball. Did we all forget about Philadelphia? Did we all forget about the Dodgers at Citi Field missing a pop-up? Defense doesn't matter until it costs you games, and then everybody kills the defense. You can't just worry about offense and say, oh, let's not worry about the defense. Because Vientos is positionless. He is not good anywhere on the infield at all. Because if he was, he'd be in the starting lineup. You don't understand that because you're not paying attention to what's going on. The fact of the matter is, Brett Baty, even though he's not very good defensively, is better than Vientos. Vientos' footwork is absolutely atrocious. I don't know what you've been watching, but many times you saw replays on SNY when Vientos got opportunities to play first base, to play third base, specifically first base, where even Keith Hernandez said it on the telecast and said his footwork is wrong. It's not like he hasn't played defense in the minor leagues. He played his whole life on defense. Yet his footwork is terrible. Why do you think he's working out with Francisco Lindor about defense? Because he sucks. And to this day, I don't believe the Mets think that he is anything else but a DH. Okay, Mike, so what? What? You think Yamamoto gives a shit at all? Seriously. Honestly. Like, I just don't understand. Like, what does it matter? The fact of the matter is, if Yamamoto never wanted to be a Met, he would have never took a meeting. So who cares about that? And you think Yamamoto's going to come here because Brett Beatty's playing? And then he's going to look at his stats and be like, oh my God, let's not make sure I hit a ground ball to him. I'm sorry. Defense matters. Yamamoto should be looking at the infield with the Mets defense, who, for the most part, was pretty good besides third base. I mean, Alonso got extremely better. Again, he's not great, but he got a lot better than what he was 3-4 years ago. McNeil has been a very good defensive player. Lindor is one of the best shortstops in baseball. Yeah, Mike, money. Go figure. A baseball player who's going to sign for the most money. Wow, we haven't seen that one before, even though we have about 99% of the time. Stoney, Turner never did good in New York because the Mets never gave him an opportunity. And if you know the real story behind Justin Turner getting released by the Mets, was when Sandy Alderson was the GM. Oh, everybody loves some Sandy Alderson. When there was a little bit of talk, now they didn't like Justin Turner's attitude, which seemed like it was a lot when it came to the Wilpons and attitude. Like same thing with Daniel Murphy. With Justin Turner, there was a little bit of an arbitration situation where the Mets were willing to give him $700,000, $750,000, and Turner wanted $1 million. Sandy Alderson was like, no, we're not doing that. And both sides really got a lot of hatred for each other. And the Mets didn't want to deal with his attitude and the whole situation with arbitration. So they got rid of him. And then we know what happened after that. It was basically a Jeff Kent situation. Like it was that bad. Okay, Mike, that's fine. But you know what? If the Yankees get him and they spend $50 more than anybody else, you think anybody's going to say, oh, he took $50 million more. That's the only reason why he went to the Yankees? Or all you're going to hear is, oh, he wanted us to wear number 18 and the pinstripes. And he wanted to fall into the Tanaka shoes and all that. That's what you're going to hear. But if the Mets sign him for $50 million more, you can be like, oh, he only went to the Mets for $50 million. If the Dodgers give him $50 million more, oh, he wanted to play with Ohtani, the iconic franchise of the Dodgers. That's what you're going to hear. You see the irony in that and the double standard? The fact of the matter is that if he didn't want to take, if he never thought about going to the Mets, he would have never took a meeting with the Mets. Players are allowed to say no. Why didn't you say no? That's fine, Mike. You don't have to see it happening. But the fact of the matter is, he's going to sign for the most money. And again, if the Mets aren't the most money, I'm going to have a problem with Steve Cohen because there's no reason why you shouldn't get him. And this is what I always say. And people always have a problem with this. For what reason? I have no fucking idea. Listen and listen closely. If you pick a player and you focus on a player, and that's the player you want more than anybody else, you do whatever it takes. I don't give a fuck about prospects. I don't give a fuck about money. Because prospects are exactly what prospects are. They're a question mark until they're not. More often than not, they're not going to be good. Right? We look at the Atlanta Braves and act like it's so normal when every one of their farm system guys work out. That's not normal. But we expect it to be because we see it every day in the Brave system. And we see it with the Braves in the NL East. The fact of the matter is that if you want a player, you go get him by any means necessary. All right? And I'm not telling you that the Mets had an opportunity to get Juan Soto, even though I wouldn't have cared if they traded for Juan Soto, because if one of those players they traded are even close to Juan Soto, then the Mets still won the deal. And most likely, none of those players they trade would be any close to what Juan Soto is. So it's a win in the Mets book, rental or not. In my situation, I would give whatever the hell the Padres wanted for Juan Soto. You know why? Because all we keep on hearing is that Juan Soto is going to free agency. Who has the most money? Where's Juan Soto going to go? He's going to go to the team that gives him the most money. Let's not act like this stuff is not warranted, because it is. Right? It's just that simple. We act like players never always want to go to the team that they end up with, yet it's always the biggest money. So what is the real drive for them going to that team? Right? Even though Garrett Cole grew up a Yankees fan, you know why he went to the Yankees? Because they offered him more than anybody else. I didn't hear anybody say, oh, they offered him $30, $40 million more. That's why he went there. No. You know what it was about? Garrett Cole's stupid sign when he was a kid in the 90s. That's what it was about. You see the point? That's the point. The fact of the matter is, you want somebody, you go get them at any cost. Because even if the Mets give $400 million to Yamamoto, do you really think it matters when it comes to Juan Soto being a free agent in 2025? Or Pete Alonso with his extension, if it happens? The fact of the matter is that players take the most money. And I never fault, just like I gave credit to Brian Cashman, who was one of the biggest prospect huggers in this town, and probably all of baseball, who lost out on championships because he didn't want to give up prospects for Cole or Verlander or Luis Castillo. He finally gave up. Again, I didn't think it was a great package, but he was finally willing to give up Michael King, who the Yankees really liked, and Thorpe, who was one of their better pitching prospects, along with a bunch of other arms. The fact of the matter is, I gave credit to Cashman because he went into this offseason saying, I want Juan Soto. Nothing is going to stop me. And what did he do this whole offseason? Was aggressive the entire time. He saw the Padres were having issues financially, knowing that they were going to trade Juan Soto. So what did he do? He put pressure on them. He was aggressive doing it. How can you fault an owner or a GM for being aggressive on a player they really want? If you complain as a fan of a team when a GM and an owner says, I want that guy and nothing's going to stop me, no matter if it's prospects or if it's money. Yet, if they don't get that guy and you know they were really serious about them, in the case of Yamamoto with the Mets, if the Mets clearly, you're not flying to Japan just to have a good time with Yamamoto and his family at a French-Japanese restaurant just for the hell of it. It's showing you how much they want Yamamoto. That always told me that Cohen is not going to get outbid. Now, is it possible that somebody comes really, really close and then he chooses that team? Yes, but I'd be shocked if he goes anywhere else for less money. It's just that simple. With Yamamoto, the Mets are telling you with their own just proof of going to Japan that that's the player they're focusing on more than anybody else this offseason. Why are you going to get mad if it's $380 million for Yamamoto? Because it doesn't matter. It's just that simple. I agree. And again, what happens if Yamamoto becomes a Met? And I'm going to guarantee you this, and quote me on this. If the Mets get Yamamoto, watch MLB Network, watch SNY, listen to Andy Martino, who hates the Mets, or anybody else that talks about Yamamoto to the Mets and he signs, you're not going to hear one reporter say he wanted to be a New York Met. No. You know what you're going to hear? Well, he was only a Met because they offered him the most money. Oh, why else would he go to the Mets? Only because he had the most money. Not saying that one of his best friends in Kodai Senga, which has been well documented, pitched well for the Mets. The Mets really took care of Kodai Senga. You don't think Yamamoto is paying attention to that? That matters to these Japanese players. And there's, again, I said this again, there's two things that Yamamoto wants that has been well documented and well reported through all the reporters. Usually when all of them say something similar, it's usually somewhat correct. Two things. Number one, he likes the spotlight. You're in New York. Mets and Yankees, doesn't matter. You're in New York. Fact of the matter is, you're going to be front page news if you're the Mets or the Yankees, right? That's one. Number two, well documented, well reported. He wants to play with another Japanese player. Now you're going to be like, well, why not go to the Dodgers? Because he is second fiddle to Ohtani. He is probably the third, probably fourth best player on that team. He is going to be news for a day or two. And then when they start playing, it's all about Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and Yamamoto when he pitches every fifth day. If you become a Met, you have Kodai Senga, who has been successful in his first year out of Japan. Right? Who is his friend, by the way? And when Yamamoto puts on a Mets uniform, he is number one. He signs with the Yankees. They don't have a Japanese player that he wants to play with. He is not the number one ace. You put on that Met jersey, you are automatically the ace of the staff. Two things he wants, he gets automatically with the Mets. Just that simple. Well, Joe, Nola took hometown discount. Real Muto took more money. Well, actually, there wasn't really many teams that were really after Real Muto besides the Mets at that time, and they signed James McCann, so that took him out of the running. But Harper really didn't take less money. He just put more years on his deal. And let's not act like Harper was so excited to go to Philadelphia when he basically signed, what, in February? Late January when that happened? All right, Mike, that's fine. But why do you care if it's $50 or $60 million more? Why do you care? If it's the player you want, it shouldn't matter. There's no salary cap. There is no salary cap. Why are you so concerned about that? One, how did he get more with the Dodgers? He is the fourth best player on that team. The spotlight that he wants, he's going to be buried in LA because nobody stays up and watches. You got Dodgers fans showing up in the third inning and leaving in the seventh. And I live in New York. Let's not talk about traffic, all right? It sucks everywhere. Yeah, play with another Japanese player who he's going to be in the shadow of. I'm sorry, but if you come to the Mets, you're not in the shadow of Kodai Senga. Yeah, Mike, I think the fact that Cohen went to Japan tells me he's not going to get outbid. Because if that was the case, if Cohen's going to be within the realm, and again, here's the problem that nobody understands. And I keep on talking about this, but nobody's really talking about it in the chat. Nobody can offer him a contract yet. Why is that? Because he's not a typical free agent. He is a posted free agent from Japan. Yamamoto has to pick a team before he can negotiate a contract because that adds on to the posted fee for the Japanese team. Now, teams can give parameters where if Cohen says, I'm looking around 8-9 years, around 325 to 350. And he's probably hearing those parameters wherever he goes on whatever number and whatever years. Yeah, Juan? Well, you know what? Nobody stays up to watch the Dodgers. Sorry. The majority of the country doesn't watch. Unless the Dodgers are playing somewhere on the East Coast or in the middle of the country, nobody watches. want. Again, I'm not saying the Dodgers can't outbid everybody. But the fact of the matter is the fact that, again, the Dodgers can win all they want. But they failed a lot of times in the playoffs. And we talk about Ohtani like he's, he was sent down by God. Do we really know what he's going to do in the playoffs? Because last time I checked, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman were what, 124 against the Diamondbacks? I don't care how good your team is. You can have an all-star team. Doesn't mean you're going to win. It's baseball. This ain't the NBA where the best 5 teams are probably going to win a championship. One of those teams. Chris, I agree with that. But we lose the sense of a lot of these Japanese players have pride in themselves. And they want to be a part of turning things around and being a part of something special. Can the Dodgers do that? Absolutely. Absolutely. Can the Yankees do that? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't believe that Yamamoto is going to take the biggest contract, you're crazy. The Mets didn't take last season, Juan. That is such a stupid comment. They didn't tank last year. They made a smart business decision in regards to baseball. Because if we were coming into the season with Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander in this rotation, the Mets wouldn't be in on Yamamoto at all. I can almost guarantee you that. And you know how many Mets fans would have been crying like children? It would have been an outrage of Mets fans that would have been complaining. The fact that we're so in on Yamamoto was because of those trades. Because if you had Scherzer and Verlander with Kodai Senga, well, technically you have your ace. Technically you have your number 2 and number 3. What are you going to sign Yamamoto for your number 4? It wouldn't have been possible. Deron, but that's not true, though. Why did Kodai Senga come here? What success did the Mets have prior to him coming? They won 101 season and got embarrassed in the playoffs. Why did Max Scherzer come here? Was it because he liked the Mets? Why did Justin Verlander come here? Shit, let's keep on going back. Why did Carlos Delgado get signed here? Why did Beltran? Why? Why did Tom Glavine come here? Why did Mike Hampton come here? Like, we're acting like this is like new to everybody. Like the Mets are so good every year that they were never able to sign free agents. Right? Jason Bay was a disaster. Well, why did Jason Bay come to the Mets? He just came from a Boston Red Sox that were in the playoffs. Why did he come to the sad old Mets? Okay, Chris, but that's the point. The players come for the money, no matter who you are. Right? We act like Garrett Cole took $100 million less because he was a Yankee fan growing up and had a stupid sign when he was a kid in right field. He took the most money. That's why he went to the Yankees. If the Astros, which he was on, offered him more money, he would have been an Astro. Yeah, okay, Chris, but that's not the case. Carlos Beltran wasn't old. Carlos Beltran didn't want to be a Met. Do we all forget the situation that he went to the Yankees and showed him the Mets offer and said, if you match this, I'll be a Yankee. But guess what? The Yankees didn't want to go there, and he took the Mets offer. You know why? Because it was the most money. And he was just on a Houston Astros team that he almost won a World Series with and had the best postseason numbers anybody had. Why didn't he want to stay with Houston? Because they weren't giving him more money. That's the point. Yeah, explosive. You can say that all you want, but we've said that time and time again. The Braves were the best thing since sliced bread, and they got knocked out in the first round. Like we forget this situation where how many people were saying, "Oh, the Braves are the favorites. Nobody's going to beat them," and they got embarrassed by the Phillies again. Who I think we all can agree the Phillies aren't better than the Braves on paper. But when was the last time on paper mattered in baseball? Do we forget that? We had a Mets team that everybody loved in 2015 that was complete dog shit in the first half of the year. We all forget that. We don't want to remember it because we only want to remember post Yoenis Cespedes trade. We don't talk about the first half where Juris Familia was giving up a terrible home run to Justin Upton a few days before the trade deadline. We forget that, right? After the rain delay, right? We forget about terrible, freaking, Eric Campbell being cleanup hitter in May. We don't talk about that. According to everybody, prior to the 2015 season, the Mets were a year away. Oh, wow. What are they saying today? The Mets are a year away, 2025. Right? Similar, go back. I know a lot of people don't want to because the narrative doesn't fit what people want to believe. Go back to 2015's spring training. Oh, the Mets got some good pieces. They got some pitcher coming up through the farm. Oh, it's looking nice. Look at this. But they're a year away, right? 2016 was supposed to be the year that everything was supposed to change. Similar to what we're talking about right now for 2024. Oh, they're not really trying for 2024. 2025 is the year. We heard this before. 2015, we heard this in spring training, in the 2014, after the 2014 season, talking about this offseason was about preparing for 2016. The exact same thing we're talking about now. Exact same thing. Oh, they're not really going for it for 2024. They're working their way for 2025. We did the same exact thing. And you cannot tell me that this team going right now, constituted right now. Now, again, add whoever you want to add. If you want to add Blake Snell, Yamamoto, whoever. Say if the Mets do get Yamamoto and they do and sign Justin Turner. Let's just say that. That's their moves and a couple of bullpen pieces. You can't tell me that the 2024 Mets going into the season with Yamamoto, with Justin Turner and bullpen arms was not better than the 2015 Mets coming out of spring training? Really? Did you see the roster coming out of spring training in 2015? It was embarrassing. One, they might be a fourth-place team, but they were supposed to be a fourth-place team in 2015. Yeah, but Chris, history doesn't matter. Because if history mattered, then David Wright never would have been what David Wright was. Jose Reyes would have never been what Jose Reyes was. History does not matter. All of a sudden, everybody forgets that Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Jeff McNeil were farmhands, were prospects. But we don't talk about them no more. You know why? Because they're part of the core now. Well, Mike, I think he wants that. Because if he didn't want that, then why take the meeting with the Mets? Because money isn't an option right now with these meetings. Because they can't offer him a contract. They can only show him parameters of a contract. That's a fact. Mike, I agree. And you know what? Zach Wheeler would have been a Met if Cohen was the owner at the time. But let's be honest. Cohen came into a shitty situation. Shitty situation. No farm system. a rotation that was falling apart. What else could he do? Coming in, yet in 2 years, in 2022, which the second year of his ownership, had the Mets and made moves to make the Mets a 101 win team. Now he tried to double down while building a farm system in 2023 and spend more money. It didn't work out. But let's not act like Cohen didn't try. 2 years in a row, he got the best pitchers on the market. You can say whatever you wanted about Max Scherzer, but that same old Los Angeles Dodgers also wanted Scherzer badly. Remember, all we talked about going into the 2022 offseason and into it, we have to remember the Dodgers had the 2 years of similar money, $40 million a year. The Mets offered the same thing. Cohen got Scherzer into the room. Scherzer said this. It's reported. He said that multiple times. Why did you sign? Because of Steve Cohen. You know why? Because Steve Cohen got him into a room and says, listen, we have the same offer on the table, 2 years, $80 million, than the Dodgers do. What is it going to take for you to come to the Mets? Scherzer said a third year. So the Mets compromised and says, all right, third-year player option. And he was a Met. So let's not act like the Mets were the only team that wanted him, because the Dodgers were willing to spend just as much money for Scherzer. Verlander just won the Cy Young, and the Mets signed him. It didn't work out. Even though I would have been mad if they would have kept Verlander. I think Verlander would have been fine. But the Mets made a decision, and a baseball business decision. What is a quicker way without being terrible for 3 or 4 years? Because that's the only way you build up a farm system, is to be terrible for 3 or 4 years. The problem with the Mets, with the Wilpons, were that they were always terrible but couldn't draft. Yet, the last couple of seasons, under Billy Epler, he had a hell of a couple of drafts. And David Stearns has been a very good guy who's drafted with the Brewers and has been known and has been proven to continue to have a really good bullpen with guys you never heard of over and over and over again. And if anybody believes that the Mets can't be a 500 team by what's on paper right now, is silly. Because if Scherzer and Verlander were healthy, you can't tell me if Verlander was healthy in April, the Mets could have won about 4 or 5 games more. Which, well, wow, what would that have been? Oh, that would have been a 500 record. Yeah, Duran, that's the point. Well, Chris, what are you talking about scoring runs? Do you know the Mets' runs per game was almost the same as in 2022? The Mets had a 4.5 runs per game in 2022. You know what the Mets run per game this year was? 4.2. Not much of a difference. It's not even a half a run. So it wasn't the offense. It was the pitching. Now, in June, the offense didn't show up. But in April and May, the Mets were right on top offensively in the league in the first 2 months. They were a complete disaster in June. But let's not take away from the pitching that was non-existent in April and May, where the offense carried them into June. And then when the pitching finally got a little bit better, the offense didn't show up in June. But after June, July, August, September, and I'm not even going to go over August and September, but July, prior to the deadline, the offense was scoring over 4.5 runs per game. One, pitching doesn't win championships. Because if it did, then other teams that weren't in the World Series would have made the World Series. The Rangers won because they hit like a motherfucker in the playoffs. They didn't necessarily pitch well. They were good, but not great. You don't need a dominant rotation to win a World Series. All right? The Phillies in 2022 had one of the worst bullpens all season and went into the playoffs with one or two guys from the trade deadline, but was majority of the guys that sucked in 2022. But they figured out a way to win. You know why? Because they bludgeoned people offensively. But guess what? When they got to the World Series against the Astros, they stopped hitting. And it was done. Texas, yes, right wing. The Texas pitching was clutch. But look at that. Look at their games. Besides Evaldi and Montgomery, who was acquired at the deadline, everybody else wasn't very good. I can tell you that the Diamondbacks had a better pitching staff than the Rangers with Gallen and Fott and those guys. But the Rangers won because they hit the entire postseason. They scored the most postseason runs out of any team. They were just dominant offensively. They didn't win a lot of 2-1 games. They were winning games 8-4, 9-4, 10-4, 7-3. Easy. Thank you. The Mets had a better pitching staff in Kansas City in 2015. Why didn't the Mets win? Because their offense was better. Just go over the last 5-6 years. The teams that won had some really good offenses and were clutch in the postseason offensively. Now, I'm not saying throw a couple of fourth starters in the playoffs and let's go. But you can't tell me that a team like the Phillies in 2022, who weren't very good in the bullpen, and after Zach Wheeler, there wasn't much else. Because Nola didn't have a good year in 2022. You're going to tell me the Phillies pitching was what made the difference for them making a World Series? Absolutely not. Because they were scoring runs left and right. Same thing with the Rangers last year. Yeah, easy. And again, I have no problem with that. I think you can easily find a bullpen that was dominant. Can anybody name the KC bullpen arms? And I go back to this. Can anybody name the Brewers and the Yankees bullpen arms? I guarantee you can't name more than 3, if 3 at all, that are not Clay Holmes and Williams, that are closers. You know why? Because they're no names. Yet they were number 1 and 2 in ERA last year. The Yankees and the Brewers bullpen. Why was that? I don't remember having all these no-name bullpen arms. They had really good closers, which, oh, by the way, the Mets have, and they thrown a lot of arms at the wall and see what ended up being good in spring training, and that's what they used in going into the season. Yeah, I agree. And listen, the Mets didn't win the postseason in the playoffs, in the wild card, was because of 2 reasons. In game 1 and game 3, even though they couldn't hit, their pitchers put them behind the 8 ball. But when they got a decent start from DeGrom in game 2, their offense powered their way through and won the ball game. In game 1 and game 3, it didn't matter if the Mets scored 5 runs. It didn't matter if the Mets scored 6 runs. They weren't winning because the pitching was terrible. And that was with guys that was trusted during the season in Scherzer and Bassett. Well, Chris, that's just stupid. There's 0 reason. Well, there was enough of reason to take a meeting that he didn't have to take. I think we're laughing at, right? Why does he want to be a San Francisco Giant? He took a meeting with them. What has been so different over the last couple of years with the Giants that wasn't similar with the Mets? They had a really, really great season when they won 108 games and then didn't make the playoffs the next year. So why did he take a meeting with the Giants? Why is he going to take a meeting with the Red Sox? Last time I checked, the Red Sox weren't good last year. What do the Red Sox have to bring to the table? What do the Giants bring to the table that the Mets can't? Very similar, right? Chris, yeah, he'll get money, but he won't get the most money anywhere else. Yeah, but you think Yamamoto is thinking about a good farm system? Because I can tell you that the Mets have a better farm system, position player wise. If you get Yamamoto, you worry a little bit less about their pitching prospects at the moment. But Juan, no, he's not. Because driving up the price is pointless when you can't offer him a contract yet. You're not understanding that. You just said it, and everybody else just said it. He can get money anywhere. So if he knows he's going to get money anywhere, why if he really wants to be a Yankee or a Dodger, why don't just those two teams can't offer him the most money? Why don't he just take the Yankee and Dodger meeting and call it a day? The fact of the matter is, he's not having a meeting with teams, because there's teams like the Phillies. There's teams like the Blue Jays. There is teams that could offer him a lot of money, but he has no interest in taking a meeting with them. Why? Why? You can't tell me every team can use a Yamamoto. There's a lot of teams that are not getting meetings that would probably want him. There's a reason why there's only about 8 teams getting meetings and not the 15 teams we heard are interested. So if he was so interested in only a certain amount of teams, then he would have meetings with only a certain amount of teams. Anywhere he's having a meeting with, he is interested in joining. Because he can get the money anywhere. That's fine, Explosive. That's fine. And then Andy Martino said the Mets are one of the favorites. And then tomorrow, the Dodgers would be the favorite. And then tomorrow, when Yamamoto meets with Boston, they'll be the favorite. You know why? Because they don't know anything. They really don't. These reporters know just as much as we all do. Nothing. Because if the prestige of the Pinstripes and the history and the number 18 and Tanaka and Matsui mattered, he would have said, I'm picking the Yankees and we'll work out a contract with the Yankees. You don't think the Yankees will offer him $300 million? If he says, I grew up a Dodger. Shit, if I grew up a Mets fan. If I was a baseball player and the Mets wanted me, you think I'd care about taking meetings with anybody else? Absolutely not. Especially when I know the Mets would pay me what I want. See the point of that? The fact of the matter is, he can get paid anywhere. And if a few $1 million don't matter to him, then why is he taking meetings with all these teams? Because in each team, he sees something he would like to be a part of. Mike, I hope I'm right. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But it's not going to be because the Mets weren't willing to give him the most money. Because again, and I'm going to repeat, the New York Mets or any team that are talking to him right now can't put an offer on the table. All they can do is give him information and parameters of what the contract could look like and where they would be willing to go. Because when you're a free agent that was posted from Japan, it's not a typical free agent period for that player. He has to choose a team. Then they work out a contract. Not before. This is not Ohtani where he can have a bidding war for his services. There is no bidding war with Yamamoto. All there is presenting what your team you project your team to be what you want it to show to Yamamoto, and that's when he chooses. Right? We just saw the Dodgers post a video of him at Dodger Stadium with Betts and Freeman and Ohtani, and him in a Dodger jersey and his face on the screen and all that. Why didn't he not leave and say, I want to be a Dodger? Let's go. Let's figure out a contract. You know why? Because he sees things in all the teams that he can be a part of. And if when it only mattered, wouldn't he be a Dodger already? Wouldn't he would have said, all right, I want to be a Dodger. Let's work out a contract. No. Because there's things that he sees. I'm just checking the comments, guys. I'm going to end this in a second. Remember, guys, in a 2-week span, we heard the Mets were the favorites, the Dodgers are the favorites, the Yankees are the favorites. Watch out for the Giants because they want to spend money. But then you had the GM come out of the Giants saying nobody wants to come to the city of San Francisco because it's so bad. So what is it? Is it reporting or is it clickbait? Bob Nightingale, who is usually wrong, now people want to use him as a fact. See how stupid that sounds? When Andy Martino says something good about the Mets, listen to that because he never says anything good directed at the Mets because he's a Yankees show reporter. That's a fact. Well, reportedly, that's what they're saying, Robert. That, and again, I don't know how true this is, but this is what's been reported. If the Mets don't land Yamamoto, they're going to pivot to Blake Snell. I don't agree with that. But for 5 innings, Blake Snell is one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's all I got for you with that. So, all right, guys, let's finish it up. Trace Thompson was signed to a minor league deal for the Mets. Another depth piece added to the 500 the Mets have signed to a minor league deal this offseason. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You need depth pieces. You need guys who are not concerned about their role and don't mind being bench pieces, or guys that come up from the minors to fill a spot for a week or two if an injury happens. That's the guys you want. You want guys that know their role. And that's the point. So with that said, guys, let's see what the Mets are going to do. I think most likely Yamamoto is going to make a decision probably early next week. He's still got a couple of meetings. I think it's with the Red Sox. I'm assuming he's going to meet with the Blue Jays over the next couple of days. The weekend, I don't think they're going to make a decision. But Monday or Tuesday, it's probably really where we're going to start hearing if he's going to meet with teams for a second time, and that's going to show you the finalist of where he wants to go. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to go down. But remember, it's a different type of free agent player. The Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers can't offer him a contract until he chooses that team. Remember that. So all the nonsense you hear is wrong. He has to choose a team first, then negotiate a contract. Teams can give parameters of what they can show Yamamoto. This is what we're looking at, 8 or 9 years, around $300 to $350 million. Let's work out the contract. But he has to choose a team before they can work out a contract or negotiate a contract, because it also has to deal with the posting fee of that Japanese team. So with that said, guys, another Mets hot stove in the books. If anything breaks tomorrow, I will go live. I'm going to be doing a video that I'm going to post tomorrow, probably around 4 o'clock. So check out for that. With that said, guys, another hot stove in the books. Hopefully everybody has a good night. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. And I'll see you next time, guys. Have a great night. See you next time.
Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life. come